Well, thank you so much for your time and taking time out of your very busy schedule to have this conversation. This is part of the Abramson Grant Project in supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion in CAP research. And I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself for the people who are watching, and then we'll go ahead and jump into some conversation.
Thanks, Ananya, and it's such a pleasure to be with you, and I'm really excited about our conversation. So my name's Warren Ng, and I have the pleasure of being a professor of psychiatry at Columbia University. I'm also the director of child and adolescent psychiatric services here at Columbia University Medical Center, and I'm so privileged to be the past president for the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, proud member. So thank you.
Well, that is quite the distinguished career path. And I'm very honored to have this privilege to get to talk with you and yeah, engage in conversation. And also I'll introduce myself as well. I'm Ananya Roy. I'm an intern, a psychiatry intern at the University of Texas at Austin. And I'm interested in child and adolescent psychiatry. So if you don't, we'll go through a couple of different topics and kind of flow through some things. We'll start with your career journey, and then we'll, hopefully touch on some of the successes and potential milestones and challenges you faced in your career, and kind of end on more advice and looking forward into the future in terms of CAP research. So if you don't mind starting in terms of, how did you get to where you are today, or what are some formative experiences in terms of your research and clinical journey?
Thanks so much, Ananya. So I generally say, how did I get to where I am today? And I would say I had the foresight to follow my interests and my passions. There's this wonderful quote by Rumi that says, "Let the beauty of what you love be what you do." And I would say that my career path is not a straight path. And I think that that's part of the journey, and really allow yourself to be open to discovery.
Mhm.
And each one of us has our own path. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my path, because I think that I learned along the way. So you are all much way ahead of myself because you already know that child and adolescent psychiatry and particularly research is within your vision. And I would say that that wasn't a part of my journey. I went to medical school to become a doctor because I wanted to help others. And I really wanted to bring my humanity to where it was needed the most. And I think I was pretty struck by the inequities that I saw around me, even as a person of color and as an immigrant. Um, but one of the things I would say is that I started medical school in the late 80s, and it was the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic.
Mhm.
During that time, we are all creatures of our time, and being a gay man, I was just really struck by the level of really suffering and heartbreak of all these young people losing their life and with stigma and shame. And so, of course, because of that, I was like, I want to serve people who need me. So I thought I'm going to become a doctor, taking care of people with dignity, living with HIV and AIDS. And of course, the other wonderful leader, in quote, Audre Lorde said that there is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. And of course, I'm Asian, I'm first generation Chinese immigrant, and I grew up really centering the value of family. And
Mhm.
so really that sense of collective Asian identity was really powerful for me. And so I said, I really love families. And so the one thing that I came out of the whole process understanding is that I want to put HIV and families together. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to become a family doctor, and I'm going to take care of people living with HIV, but I also wanted to center their experiences within their families and the power of coming out and how to best support people. I just noticed that my lights went out. So I think here they go back on. So But I would say that I was really intrigued by just those ideas, and it was actually during the last few months of my family medicine residency
Mhm.
that I actually stumbled upon child and adolescent psychiatry, and I would say that was really such a revelation, and I fell in love with child and adolescent psychiatry, and the magic of the work is really the joy of the children, and really Frederick Douglass has this wonderful quote, "It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men."
Mhm.
So that's really what drew me into sort of bringing together all of my interests of HIV, family medicine, as well as child and adolescent psychiatry. And it inspired me to move to the US because I was in Canada to come and do another residency in psychiatry. And I moved to New York City at that time.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I think something that stuck out to me when you're talking is, how you mentioned the intersectionality of your own identity and, wanting to support patients who maybe share aspects of the identity that resonates with you. And, how have you worked with Asian American families since moving to the US, and how has that been in terms of a clinician as well as a researcher?
I think I did my child and adolescent psychiatry training at Bellevue, NYU, and it serves a large portion of Asian communities, particularly the Chinatown in New
Mhm,
York City. So it gave me an opportunity to really provide care, and also the inherent challenges, because you really have to kind of work on your own issues as you're trying to help others. And I realized that I had a lot of my own triggers related to sort of how I grew up. And it was really important to work through those things because then you can use your personal narrative as real strengths in helping others. And it's just some of the immigration, sort of cross-cultural issues that I experienced, I've realized I could really help kids and families, having had that shared experience. And I would say that that's true an extension of other immigrant families and other cross-cultural issues. It definitely informed how I saw myself, but also how I saw other people in trying to understand what they were going through.
mhm. I think what I'm hearing is, that countertransference piece of, you know, your own experiences and seeing yourself in patients and that, collective immigrant identity, regardless of where you're coming from. And that can be a very strong force too, and promote that therapeutic alliance that's so important within psychiatry. Were there any particular pivotal moments or salient experiences in your work that stick out to you in your journey?
Well, thank you, Nanya. There are so many. But some of the things that I would say in terms of pivotal moments are really thinking about the pivotal people too,
Mm,
because I think those moments involve other people, and that's the beauty of doing this work, is really being able to connect with people and sort of find synergy and to spark each other's inspiration and excitement. So I would say I was really lucky to meet some really incredible clinicians and researchers doing my work. And I ended up moving to New York City, and the work that really centered, I think, as I shared my personal narrative earlier on, all of
mm,
the areas that were important to me was I ended up putting together my wish to serve people living with HIV, my understanding of underserved communities and minoritized communities,
mhm,
as well as child and adolescent psychiatry and health and physical health, and ended up doing perinatal or pediatric HIV and maternal HIV mental health work. So in New York City, and it was at the height of the border baby crisis for
mhm,
kids born with HIV being left in hospitals. So I ended up doing a lot of that work, which was really meaningful for me. But it also brought together all those various sort of areas of myself to the work that I'm doing, HIV, being a gay man, but also that child and adolescent psychiatry, as well as the family medicine piece.
Mhm.
So then I was able to learn a lot about how we can bring together research as well as a clinical mission, because at that time we were just trying to figure out how
Yeah.
do we save these kids? How do we develop effective antiretroviral treatment that's safe for kids, that isn't harmful for their development, and being able to contribute to some of that earlier work, and following some of these children to see their cognitive, emotional, and psychological development, was really powerful. So I think that being able to find where research can also inform our clinical practice, and also finding those partners and collaborators, uh,
Mhm.
was really, really wonderful.
Yeah, I think, to mirror your language, it's such a powerful thing to be able to find your, kind of nexus point that brings together all your interests and, find a way to merge and amalgam all these family medicine, child and adolescent psychiatry, maternal and fetal medicine, all these things that often are segregated and holistically treat families and promote outcomes for children years down the line. um, what would you say were some of the more challenging aspects of being able to do that, or in conducting some of the research that you did?
I think some of the challenges, and ironically, as you're saying, Nanya, I was able to bring together all those different threads of who I am to the work that I'm doing. But I think at the time when I chose to do sort of pediatric HIV mental health and maternal mental health, people are like, "Oh my goodness, that is so specialized. Why would you want to do that? You're gonna pigeonhole yourself and you're gonna limit yourself to the experiences, so early on." And so there's this wonderful Rumi quote that says, "You're not a drop in the ocean, but an ocean in a drop." And I think that, by choosing to do this work, I actually learned so much more than what people thought it would be. I learned so much about integrated mental health. I learned about, advocacy in healthcare and mental health care. I learned a bit about working with children and adults. I also learned about the power of social determinants of health, and
Mhm,
health equity, serving mostly women and children of color and sexual and gender minorities.
mhm.
So it was a very core part of, um, my experience to have had that, and I was lucky enough to work with Jenny Havens and Claude Mellons, and just wonderful, really women leaders, in the field at that time, um, and was able to really, um, meet the challenges, but with people who were really inspirational.
Yeah, I think something I'm picking up on is oftentimes I think trainees feel this dissonance between being a clinician and being a researcher, and having to choose between one and the other because of kind of the dual aims that either of those face, where research can feel, less individualistic in terms of connecting with patients, versus clinical practice. The scope is not as, broad and population based. Um, do you have any advice in terms of navigating that, or what drew you one way or the other?
I think that it's so important to remain open, open to the possibilities that you may end up dancing between research and clinical, and
Mhm.
that it isn't a black and white line that separates that. And it's really more of the synergy between them. And so I was really lucky to be able to be the clinical collaborator on specific research projects, because I really wanted to center on developing systems of care for these
Mhm.
kids and these families. And then there are other times when I would be able to be more active on the research side and let other people also collaborate with me in developing those services. So I would say that each experience informs and enriches each one of them. Like, I think that I became a better clinician understanding the impact of research, and I
Mhm.
became a better researcher understanding how to take care of people and how to really blend and help develop strategies for questions that I had, but really rooted in good care. And
Mhm.
so I think that if you're in that space where you feel like you have to choose both,
Mhm.
and keep your options open, and also continue to grow and learn in each one of them, and find mentors and collaborators that really understand the value of research, but also the value of good clinical care, because
Mhm.
then that will enrich, I think, your journey overall.
Mhm. You've touched on how, people in throughout your career have been pivotal supports as you bring together your different fields. How do trainees find those mentors, or what advice do you have in identifying people who will be supportive as people go through, their careers as well?
That is such a great question. And I think you are all way ahead of the game, as I mentioned. I think being connected with the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, ACAP, and through this DEI research pathway, you're already connecting with some of the most incredible people in the field. And
Mhm.
so I just really encourage you to ask, and to reach out, because I think within the field of child and adolescent psychiatry, we are all wanting to support and mentor and
Mhm.
champion you all in your journey. And I think that finding groups such as like ACAP, where you can actually connect with people across the country. You don't have to be limited to any institution or any academic place, but you can actually learn across the country from experts in the field who
Mhm.
just love and champion your journey. And so I would say that reach into a reach into our organization. People are there, and whether or not it's through the research initiatives or this pipeline or pathway, or also through the research committee, or also through the diversity and culture committee or the different caucuses, you
Mhm.
can find belonging, you can find community, and you can find those partners who will help you find and illuminate your path. And I think that that's the beauty of being in child and adolescent psychiatry, is that people really want to help each other. Um, and we all want to do what's best for the field and especially for kids and families. So
Yeah, as a trainee, got involved in ACAP as a medical student, and now I'm a resident, and I've certainly felt so supported and welcomed by the community. And there's numerous opportunities to network and, build those relationships that can be so instrumental in navigating, this long journey. And so I completely agree with you. It's a very special community and place to be. Do you have like one specific piece of advice for trainees who are interested in CAP research? If you had to, among your many wisdoms, pick a singular grain, what would you bestow upon people?
I would just say follow your passions, reflect on the things that move you, and think about how you can integrate that into kind of what you do every day. Sort of that Rumi quote of let the
Mhm.
beauty of what you love be what you do.
Mhm.
Um, and I also think that we often think about the big things in life, really think about the small things as well as the big things, but also think about the process, not just the product.
Mhm.
And it's so ironic that I think the Olympics just ended last week in Paris. And I'm thinking so many times we focus on the end result, and whether or not it's a gold medal, etc., the gold medal moment. I challenge each one of us, and myself included, to not just celebrate the gold medal moments, but actually celebrate the moments that are golden. And some of the moments that are golden are just those things that get us through the day, that bring a smile to our face, and whether or not it's taking care of a kid, having a laugh with sort of the teenager who's making fun of you and the world, but really connecting to those moments, and also the beauty of the teamwork that we do. Because in child and adolescent psychiatry, we are working with families, we're working with schools, we're working with teams. And that's actually part of what brings the joy to the work. So I would say that celebrate the little things, also enjoy the process. So the journey, not the destination. And you will get there. The important thing is that you'll actually enjoy the way there. And I think that so much of the times, it is about the journey, and it's all about the people we spend um, on our journeys, and it's about the golden moments along the way. And so
Mhm.
I would just say that this is a career, this is a life sort of journey, and don't be in such a hurry. You're going to get there. The important thing is that you're going to be happy and joyful. And I think our Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, is really so inspirational. But one of the things he said is that, in the context of what we're going through, and particularly our young people, the things that are most important is really having a sense of belonging, that you are seen, you are heard, you're visible, that you matter. The other thing that's really important is a sense of purpose. And people in child and adolescent psychiatry, we have a purpose. We're trying to help kids. We're trying to make a better tomorrow. And the third thing is service. And so being able to contribute to a bigger whole, and a bigger mission, is really powerful. So I think that if there's anything, just make sure that it's something that speaks to your heart. It's something that is meaningful for you,
Mhm.
and you will also attract the people who also celebrate that vision. And you will have community, and you're already having ACAPS. So I think that that's a wonderful start. Um, and you'll definitely find the people to enrich your journey as well.
Well, that's very, very special advice, and I think it'll resonate with hopefully a lot of people going through their careers. And I think you're right in terms of medicine. There's a lot of milestones and timelines in terms of matching and publishing, and we live by those things oftentimes in academic medicine. But I really like how you talk about, taking time to think about those smaller things in life, and not neglecting the importance of those as well, as we, step back and reflect on the things that keep us going, and preventing burnout. Um, you mentioned, you know, finding your place within this cultural moment of
Mhm.
HIV and AIDS, and, immigration, and, those were salient issues and still continue to be. What other, trends, or um, how do you see child and adolescent psychiatry shifting as, we go throughout our 2000s and beyond?
I think what's wonderful is there's a I think about the silver lining, the fact that we're in the midst of a child and adolescent mental health crisis has created a lot of awareness, we need to focus on the kids. And I think that there's also greater focus on sort of research and resources and understanding how can we best help kids. So I would say that one of the trends is that there's probably going to be more support for research and understanding how to best help kids and adolescents and families. So I would say one of the trends is that there's a greater awareness, and then therefore attention and hopefully more funding to developing research initiatives, but also clinical services and strategies. I think that the other thing that is changing a lot is also between our academic institutions, but also industry. There's a lot more collaboration between industry, what we used to think of as pharma, or sort of different pharmaceutical sort of companies being interested in research, but I would say that a lot of the people who are also interested in research are also our technology companies, and also how do we innovate mental health into different spaces. And so I think that there would be more attention across different industries, the tech industry, the health industry, not only the pharma, but there may be other opportunities to fund research that might be meaningful. And I think that we're also more aware of the inequities that exist in our country, but also within our communities, and more attention to understanding those, and also the sort of the fact that we have very different health outcomes based on race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, and trying to really do some of that important research to best understand what works best for our different diverse communities will also be very, very powerful. And so I really think that there's a lot of opportunities that didn't exist before. And I would say that a wonderful trend is being able to be a part of that. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think that there's an opportunity within child and adolescent psychiatry for all of you to contribute to that.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting to be in this field right now. And like you mentioned, the Surgeon General elevating the issue and prioritizing, pediatric mental health to a national scale, and, it becoming more in the social consciousness is a very important, salient place to be in as a trainee. I want to thank you so much for your time and this dialogue. And it's been such a special thing to get to take part of and converse with you on.